live? Yeah, I think we're live now.
Mm-hmm.
What up, my nerds and all my jiu-jitsu freaks out there? Special guest today. So I'm gonna try not to embarrass my guests usually, but I'm gonna explain this. It's my favorite band mixed with jiu-jitsu, the one, the only, the rock legend, BJJ black belt, judo black belt, Sultan. How are you today, sir? I have no
How are you?
fireworks, but here you
I'm
are.
like, thank you, my brother.
You need to add that on the show.
I'll do that. The animation.
There you go, works. So, Zoltan,
All
most of
right.
us know you for the heavy metal, the rock, the music. I know mostly for the music, but now I've been a big fan because I found a few years ago how you've done jujitsu, and I've done more research how you're a judo black belt and a BJJ black belt. So, my question to you is, as I ask all my guests, is how did you start martial arts and how did you go down this road of martial arts? What made you start judo and jujitsu?
Okay, so I grew up in behind the Iron Curtain. I grew up in Hungary, and I was really interested in martial arts from the early age. Everybody knew who Bruce Lee was, so I made my little throwing stars and nunchucks and broke my teeth with that. Like everybody, I always think every kid did that. I did that, so I don't know. Maybe maybe I'm alone with this, but I always thought all the kids did this, right? But we didn't have access to any of those things, because we had some karate, like early age karate available, but not really serious. But judo was an Olympic sport.
Yes.
So there were serious judo academies everywhere, right? And every city had at least one big one that is state sponsored. So you didn't have to pay tuitions or anything. It's the state sponsored it, right? And so if I wanted to do any kind of martial arts, like age 9, somewhere around there when I started, like the only one that was like serious and was on a high level was judo. And so that's how I started judo when I was around 9. And then by 11, I was competing, and, that sort of formed my life, my ideas about the world, became a martial artist. It's not the same, with any other sports, you're doing a sport. With martial arts, you become this thing because there's a philosophy. There's a way how it rewires your mind. And, was sort of my upbringing. It was always part of my life. And then once I was in America, when I was early 20s, when I was in my early 20s, all of a sudden everything was available. I mean, like from Eskrima to Kung Fu to, and I went down the path of everything, like, give it to me,
Yeah, for
and,
real.
and then basically, eventually in my life, somewhere around 2003-4 was the first time I had some jiu-jitsu experience. I went to Warriors training camps. I was training with Pat Miletich, which is a wrestler, but a lot of jiu-jitsu guys were there. But at that time, seeing a jiu-jitsu black belt was like, like that was the holy grail. If somebody was a purple belt, like, oh my God, this guy's a purple belt. Right? So I would go to these MMA camps, and and I would sort of train there, but it was mixed. I mean, there was kickboxing. Every martial art was represented. So it wasn't purely, let's say, jiu-jitsu or grappling. It was just part of it. There were some guys, like sometimes like Jean LaBelle, judo, legend, would come by, and there would be Gokor would come by. He was sambo judo, So we would do that. But around 2007, when I was the first time I had a private lesson with Hoist Gracie, and a friend of mine hooked it up, and I got. Like a little story, I always tell this story because it's just too funny. I mean, I don't know how funny this comes through, but I went to his academy, and and there were a couple of black belts who were my friends. I was a judo black belt, no jiu-jitsu experience, right? And he comes in, kicks in the door, kind of, throws his back. He looks like he's super mad. Oh man, I'm gonna wrap somebody up today. I'm like, holy shit, man! He's like, and I'm supposed to have a private, and so I was all, telling my friends, like, guys, this can't happen. I have a show tomorrow. I need to have my hands attached. This gonna be bad. And everybody, all the black belts were like, oh man, my knee brace is acting up, and I have to pick up the kids, and everybody's kind of evaporating. I'm like,
of course,
all telling like, hey guys, like the movie like Team America. You want to get trouble? What's a sign of trouble? It was kind of like that, right? And then Eventually we got on the mat and he's like, let's go, man. And he fist bump. And, you know, I'm like, look, dude, this is like Horace Gracie, right? So probably it was on my face, like I'm about to die. And eventually, and he started laughing. You know, I'm just chilling with you, man. And then all the guys were laughing. Like, you fuckers set me up. So that was my first jiu-jitsu experience that was serious, that I rolled with Hoist for like 2 hours. And well, let's put it this way. I wasn't really rolling. I was getting my ass whooped, you know. It's not really rolling. I mean, judo Nevaza is okay, but, you know, compared to really high-level jiu-jitsu, is not. That's not something we train. Judo is really focusing on takedowns and, you know, and the standing. So we have some Nevaza, obviously, but most of us don't concentrate on that, you know. Anyway, so I got a really quick, you know, lesson in jiu-jitsu, and on the end of the training, as a ceremonial, as a joke, I kind of gave him my black belt, like, hey, give me a jiu-jitsu white belt, and I'll start training. So by 2008, I traveled with Hoist and Hoyler for a while, took part of their seminars and whatnot, and in 2008, I moved to Las Vegas, and I joined Mika Sipili's. He's a fifth degree black belt. His academy. So basically, it's Gracie who made Las Vegas. And so I joined that team, and then I start seriously training.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And Zoltan, to think about it, like when you're training, like you're a guitarist, that's your job. You pull these shows, you do a lot of tours, a lot of shows, and I train mostly no gi. I probably done gi 12 times.
Right.
And out of those 12 times, my fingers, I thought I almost cut them off, or they were bleeding internally, some kind of damage. As a guitarist, has that ever like go through your mind, like, or have you ever had a bad experience, like hurting your fingers, and that maybe prevents you from doing a show or like recording?
So, you know, I guess I'm in a privileged situation because of that, because I started judo when I was a kid, you know, so that grip strength and that training was throughout my youth, you know. It's not like I started gi jiu-jitsu or gi judo when I was older. So I grew up in that, you know, and then, you know, when you're like a 30-pound kid and you're doing pull-ups or not, you know, on a gi, it's easy, right? And so, you know, so I think my gorilla grips and my grip strength, which is, you know, all my jiu-jitsu guys telling me like, holy cow, when I grab somebody, you notice that, you know, it's a different kind of grip. Even the technique, how we grip is different, you know? And so yeah, I grew up in one. So I had a grip strength developed. So by the time I started jiu-jitsu, you know, it was already there. But I religiously tape. So I tape my fingers, even if it's something simple that I'm going to jump on a mat and I'm going to show you a technique. That is not going to happen unless I tape. Because you know what happens? The day you don't is when something happens, right?
I believe that's true.
I tape. I always tape. I don't step on a mat without the tapes. And the way I tape, I body tape, which means, you know, if you broke a finger, the doctor will tell you like, okay, you broke this digit, then you have to tape it to this or that, right? And then it's taped together.
Support,
right. So that, you know, then it's logical, or it's a logical idea. If you do that from the get-go, why are you doing that? For the support, see? So I tape like in a Vulcan style, two and two. So I tape on the top and tape in the middle, both of them. Because you know the guys who tape their joints, that never really worked for me, and I never really see the point of that. The reason I'm taping here and here, the top is so the gi cannot slid between my fingers. Right, because if you break something, it's gonna one digit stuck somewhere, right? So I put a tape right here so I don't slid in, and on the tape here there's a main support, and you know, kind of I leave a little space so the dexterity remains, right? And the strength is there, and even anatomically speaking, I mean, these two fingers extremely powerful, and so are these two. If you tape the middle together when you're trying to do that, there's a weird tension in the back of your, you know, the ligament don't align somehow. So this is what I find is more powerful. And then, you know, I can decide which part I grip with or the whole thing. And so this way, the body tape kind of make, you know, two joints instead of one. And knock on wood, I have wood around me here. You know, I never broke a finger, I never really hurt a finger because I tape that way. And I'm also, obviously, this is what I do. So I'm super conscious of this. Right. Yeah. So if I get into a situation, I lost world championships on this, that I had a grip, I had a good choke. And once I start, you know, something start twisting and I'm like, you know, if I was just a jiu-jitsu or a judo competitor, then I probably hold it. but because I'm a guitar player and I'm responsible for my band, the tours, the fans, a lot of people working for us, I can't be out. I can't be hurt.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let it go. I'll fight another day. See what I mean? So I'm super conscious of my grips, how I grip, sometimes monkey grips, sometimes, and I do gi jiu-jitsu because I know that really well. See what I mean? Because I came from judo. Like you
Yeah.
guys do no gi, I always feel like it's way more dangerous because when I'm gripping very specific things on a gi, right, I know what I'm doing and I know how I grip. With no gi, all those you're shooting in with your hand, and that's kind of like you jam fingers. I don't know.
Yeah.
I know it sounds counterintuitive, but to me, no gi jiu-jitsu looks way more dangerous to my fingers than gi jiu-jitsu
I feel
because
that.
I have
Yeah.
things to grab, right? So
Yeah.
on your body, the only thing you can really grab is the wrist. Beyond that, like you don't really have a grip. You can clinch, but you don't have you lose that. And so I always felt like it's safer for me to do gi jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. I can 100% agree on that. Even though I've done like maybe a dozen gi classes, my last gi class I did was last year, probably summer, and I did my first gi class last week. So there's a
Okay,
big gap in experience.
right.
But there's always a saying, oh, no gi is like gi and vice versa, and all these same. But I will say this: when I do no gi, I do feel like it is more dangerous, more explosive, more chance of me getting hurt.
Right.
But when I did my gi class, I felt like okay, this is still hard, but I feel a little bit more safer. I can hold more. I can pause. I
Right.
have a split
Yes.
second more to think about before I get smashed, or if I could smash someone else.
Right.
So,
Well, yeah, yeah. You're right. Because you can hold your opponent by the gi and you can slow him down. So having explosive movements are actually harder because I can hold you. I have places to grab. Right. And there are a couple of differences. Like obviously, you know, if I believe that coming from no gi to gi is much harder than going from gi to no gi. Because when I'm going to from gi to no gi, I know what I'm giving up. I'm giving up some of my techniques.
yes,
When you're coming from no gi to gi, you have no idea what the hell is waiting for you, because you don't know the techniques, you don't know the grips, you don't know, And another thing, if you notice, when you guys doing no gi, you're really close to each other, right?
very.
You have to be because you have to be able to grab, right? With a
Yes.
gi, if I'm in an arm length away from you and I grab you, I already have you. So I
Yeah.
mean,
Exactly.
so from a much farther, from a way farther place, I can already reach you. I can already control you. I can already move you around.
Yeah.
So that's another difference. That the distance management is very different in a gi and a no gi. You have to be close to me in no gi. With a gi, I can already control you from far away. So no-gi guys are not necessarily ready for that until they
No.
until they start to, and then there are all the gi chokes, all those
Yeah.
all those
There's a
things that
bunch
you
of
yeah
names I have no idea, like Spider Guard, Laco. I don't know these names. I don't know what they are. And me doing the grips, I'm like, I'll just use what I know, my pressure
right
points, but I never grab much. I tried to go for a cross.
right
I gave up. I
yeah
gave up.
yeah and those chokes are really quick, really quick, really efficient. And
Extremely.
again, if you're coming in to the gi world, you just don't know what's waiting for you, where the traps are. Well,
Oh,
again, as I just said a second ago, if I convert from nogi, I'm sorry, from gi to nogi, a lot of those chokes, I mean, obviously, that's a rear naked choke is not involving the gi, right? So, in a gi, we all learn those moves, those chokes,
yeah,
but I have an extra set of arsenal, an extra set of
exactly.
weapons that you're not necessarily privy to.
Oh, for sure. That you just reminded me of last week when I did the gi. There was the my coach's sister. She's really good. She's a blue belt, but she's really good. But she had my back, so we're drilling, and I just blanked out. I just okay, we're not gonna choke. I'm protecting myself. I'm shielding. I'm good. But she just slid on in, and she was about to choke me. I was about to pass out because I just didn't realize. Oh, right, you can choke someone this way.
Right,
So there
right,
is that.
right,
I go
right.
down this path of like there's too many I don't know how you say it, too many moves in the gi for me, which is
Right.
really challenging.
I mean, one of the things that you would immediately notice if I come from, let's say, behind, right? and I grab your gi somewhere deep here, right?
Yes.
It's like one hand, hard to peel it off, and one hand is already halfway there for the choke, right? With that, if you're not doing nogi, then you need the other hand. There's no
Yeah.
other way, right? Here, I can already put in a hand here and then start choking, and this lateral can be pulled up here or down here.
Down. Yeah.
So you won't even notice it that I'm
Exactly.
really so you're only seeing like one hand came in and you don't feel like you're in danger because you don't realize like far away from your neck actually I'm pulling the other side of that lateral that is
You
choking
don't see
you.
it.
So there are a lot of those really sneaky stuff that you don't
Sneaky, sneaky stuff indeed.
actually notice it's happening until it's somebody waking you up like, hey man,
Yeah.
you were out for a minute.
Yeah, pretty much. And with all these, well, chokes and gi or no gi, and you training, and have there's ever been a moment like, do you remember like your most serious injury that you ever received in judo or jiu-jitsu?
I mean, yeah, it's like, if when you go to the chiropractor and they ask you to mark where it hurts and I just color the whole body like
The whole sheet.
right. A funny thing about injuries too that it's a lifetime of this, right?
Yes.
And kind of, maybe I'm not advertising, the jiu-jitsu or martial arts right because what I'm saying everything hurts, then it is kind of true, but also your tolerance to pain is super high. So so maybe a pain for me, just kind of a nagging, annoying low injury, right? Somebody would be staying home out of the job for, for weeks. Who knows? Because it happened to me several times. I broke my fibula, I broke my toe, my nose so many times I can't even count. And the common denominator was that I didn't take care of the injury because I didn't think it was serious. So I would be training on a broken leg and like, yeah, it hurts, but and eventually like, let me get an X-ray. And my doctor is like, bro, your leg is broken. Like, when did you
Two
break
pieces.
it? Right, no, literally. It's like, when did you break it? When did it happen? I'm like, yeah, I remember when it cracked. I didn't think it was serious. And when was it? It's like, I don't know, a month ago. And he's like, what? and he's like, are you walking on this thing? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, okay, you need to use the knee roller and and all that. I'm like, yeah, whatever, right? And I kept training. We're idiots, man. I kept training, and I was going for I think it was the nationals. I'm about to compete, and I'm like, you know what? Let me just see, if it's good. So I went back for an X-ray, and then, and the doctor was like, no, you're not competing, bro. Before it was a low break, now it's completely broken. So what the hell were you doing? And of course, I wasn't using my knee roller. I wouldn't, Same thing happened with my toe. I broke my toe, and that probably I didn't take care of for maybe 2-3 months. It was just kind of hurts, but whatever, things hurt, whatever, right? And then same thing happened. And eventually I went to get an X-ray, and I was getting impatient. Like, I'm like, how long this freaking thing takes? And I was about to leave. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Like, what he's gonna, even if it was broken, what he's gonna do? Right? He's just gonna say like, I don't know, stay off of it, and I won't. So what does it matter? I was halfway at the door, and doctor, yeah, come back here. I'm like, what's up? He's like, okay, dude, your toe is not just broken, and it is broken off. I'm like, what? What do you mean broken off? I mean, it's right there. It's like, no. It's only ligaments holding it. The bones are not touching. And he shows me the X-ray. There was a 1/4 inch of, like it was completely separated. So the bone was broken off and separated from, I'm like, oh, okay. Well, what's going to happen now? It's like, well, you either put in a boot or it's going to be a serious problem later. It's going to be surgery and,
Yeah.
So I had to put on a boot, and there are some pictures of me on the road with a big. That's what happened.
That's what it's for.
Then when you see me doing the faces on stage like that, it's not necessarily I'm enjoying guitar playing. I probably have a broken rib. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh
Yeah,
man,
those are the worst. Yeah.
right. So people are probably like, man, he's really into that shit, right? And I'm like, oh no, man, I just have a broken rib.
It's jiu-jitsu.
Right. Yeah, but it's. I never had a super serious. Well, okay, what is super serious injury?
It was super serious.
I had toe, fibula, ribs. I never had. Oh, when I was a kid, one time I broke my didn't break, but just hyperextended my elbow when I was about 13, 14. That had to be in a cast. I didn't break it, but that I still feel it when it's too cold.
Yeah.
Like, I was just an idiot, kids. I was
But
out from training for maybe 2-3 months, and one of the kids that I generally dominated, I had a randori with, and I did let him win, right? And I'm like, oh, he's not winning, and
yeah.
I hyperextended. I wouldn't tap. Like, I'm like, no,
Yeah.
this is not happening, right? So I won the match, but I was out for
You
months
paid
and months.
after.
Because,
Yeah.
yeah. So I stopped being an idiot after that. I'm like, okay, you got me, you got me.
Yeah. I think we're all guilty of that too. I was having this
Right,
conversation last week, like identifying like normal pain in jiu-jitsu where it's like, okay, you get a sore shoulder, your leg hurts, you pull a muscle. I pull a muscle this
right.
here and there. But then there's pain I have to identify, and I can't. We all do. We're all be stupid sometimes. But like I had someone did a Granby roll into my rib cage,
Mm-hmm.
and that it hurt. Like there was no bruise, no nothing. It's just like whenever I would
It just
breathe or
hurts.
sneeze, it's just like
Uh-huh.
oh
Oh
shit.
yeah.
Every time it's like a knife in my stomach. So that was the one time where I started to like, okay, let me start being smart about my jujitsu because I don't want to miss jujitsu for like X amount of months now. But I was happy I took out 2 weeks, and after I was able to breathe or sneeze without the pain kicking in,
Right.
then I'm like, okay, I'm safe to roll now. But
Interestingly, those are the ones like I trained through broken fibula, broken this, broken that. The rib cage when you have, I mean, like you can not even sit up really, right?
yeah,
When you pop a rib or so, that's an injury that I don't think you can really train through, just
yeah,
because it's so painful, right?
it
I
is.
mean, other than that, I mean, like, look, I have a black eye right now. It just went away. I broke my nose so many times I can't even, or it just happens. Somebody was freaking out, and you know like you always have the freaking out blue belt spazzing, and I caught a knee right in my eye like a couple of weeks ago, so that's still a little bit,
It's those
that stuff.
elbows.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
those
yeah,
elbows for sure.
happens all the time. Like it's like I don't even, I don't cover it up. I don't, like, badge of honor, man. the
Badge of honor
caulif-
for real.
the cauliflower ears, however, I drain those,
Okay.
because when I play live we have the in-ear
Hit.
systems, right? And as you're closing your ears, I couldn't fit them in or it fall out, so I had to
Yeah.
have that, I had to have that drain. That was insanely painful,
Oh,
like, ooh, that was some, I can take the pain, my man. That hurt,
yeah. Well, I
draining
remember
that.
when I was a white belt, we did like guillotines and a lot of rubbing on the ear. And I remember my
Uh-huh.
first few weeks, I didn't get cauliflower, but my ear was super, super, super red. I had to take at least a week off
Yeah,
because it was just constant fire on my ears, and I almost quit because it was so
right,
new. These pains are so new to me.
right.
But another conversation I had with my wife actually a while ago because we talked about like because I have an old back injury, and I started to do boxing, get back in shape, and then I did jiu-jitsu because I saw these crazy people and I wanted to learn it. But ever since I've been doing jiu-jitsu, it's funny, Sultan, I never had a back injury. My back has never been stronger, but I'm breaking
Yeah.
everything else though.
Right. That
But that's
we
it's
we
kind of
we
like good
joke
news.
we joke with that, like, this hurts. Okay, well, go get the other one hurts, so now,
Yeah,
you know
you got to rotate.
get yeah, right. So it just moves the pain, the attention to another part of your body. Yeah, I mean, like, look, the flexibility that you attain with jiu-jitsu, it's even if you're not really stretching, if you're a purple belt and you miss a
Yeah, the
warm
warm
up.
up, the
No,
common joke.
that a common joke, right? So no, but it's like it's you have to, like technically you training for a couple of hours a day, you are stretching, either voluntarily or involuntarily, but you are
You are,
stretching.
you
You know
are.
what I mean? So I think a couple of years in that, it would definitely change your mobility, change your change your flexibility. So yeah, I can see that would be a natural benefit.
Mm. And Zoltan, I want to give you a compliment today for your beautiful hoodie you got there.
Right,
If you
epic roll.
notice mine,
Yeah.
Epic Roll.
The tribe, man.
It's funny because I had an episode with Matt
Uh-huh.
maybe 2 weeks ago, and I
Yeah.
love Matt. Matt's
Right.
great. And the story is I'm not sure if anyone knows the story, but I think I've told it. But I actually participated in the Epic Roll contest for Christmas,
Oh wow. Okay.
and I won.
Oh, you were the one. Oh my
I was
God.
one of the winners. So I
Wow.
thought
Nice.
I owned that competition, that contest. It was
Uh,
like my name at least 300-400 times. I went crazy. I love Epic Roll. I love Matt. I think we met through my jokes through Instagram, so he
uh-huh,
likes my
uh-huh.
jokes, and I saw that, and I have to give credit to Matt because Matt's a great guy. Because everyone thinks I'm from the States. They think I'm from New York or
Uh-huh.
whatever. I'm actually Canadian. I speak French.
Okay.
So I'm
All right.
Canadian. And the contest was for the US. But Matt's like, don't worry about it, Marco. I'll take care of you.
Right, right, right,
And yes. And
right.
so he's such a good guy. He spent like days just like making sure everything came and all that stuff. And
Right.
it's such great stuff. So my question to you, Zoltan, is how
Mhm.
did you meet Matt and how did you join the Epic Roll team?
So the epic role, uh, the epic role thing was actually a very interesting phenomena, so to speak, because
Mm-hmm.
I travel the world. I have, when I travel, the way I train on the road, I have a bunch of black belts with me. Security guy is a black belt, my tour manager is a black
By
belt,
the way.
right? And there's so I have a bunch of martial artists that on the road travel with us. And so we train, with our backstage dojo, right? We train there almost every day when we have a show. And then the local guys always come out as well. So sometimes we have 8, 9 black belts rolling backstage, right?
Right.
and and then sometimes I go to a local academy. So this is you know this, like, you're in the family. So this is
Mm.
jiu-jitsu is a brotherhood. I can go anywhere in the world, and
Yeah.
I can walk into an academy, and it's cool. And so what I noticed as I was moving in these circles, I saw this brand more and more, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these guys that I train with are either for former military, a bunch of SEALs, special forces guys, martial guys who also train in high level jiu-jitsu guys. Um, so a lot of military and law enforcement is in my circles that we train with,
Mm-hmm.
and especially those guys. I kept seeing epic roll, epic roll. What the hell is this thing, right? So first I noticed it, like, what is this thing? Because it wasn't something like a lot of brands are commercially available and it's everywhere. You kind of
Mm-hmm.
know who those brands are. But this was something that I didn't really hear of. It wasn't like a famous thing, but I kept seeing everywhere. And the most important part was like who I see wearing it, you know?
Mm.
So I'm like, okay, so what is this thing? Like high level guys that is it was an inside secret or something, right?
Special club.
Right. And then eventually I met Matt. He also loves fighting that punch, so he would come out to the shows, and then eventually became friends and started train together. So he would be one of the guys who come and train with us. And in that conversation, at one point, I just asked him like, "Hey, what do you want to do with this? And what's the story here?" And basically we came to this conclusion, like, I have the resources. If we come together we have a massive network. I mean, he knows
Mm-hmm.
everyone as well. I have a massive network. I would be interesting to be part of this company. So so we merged, and then there's a three of us. Basically it's my girl Heather Gracie, she's
Mm-hmm.
Carlos Gracie's granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
Matt and I run this company now. And what's around it, there's this tribe we call the Epic Tribe. And what it is, I mean, we have a lot of guys. I mean, the who's who of jiu-jitsu is really in
Mm-hmm.
there. And it's this brand somehow kind of connected us. And then we do these events where we would go and just get together for a few days, and we all train. So this is really a tribe that travels together, train together, but we all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? And Jiu-Jitsu was already like that for me. That's a big family, it's a big brotherhood, but this is a brotherhood within a brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And like as I'm telling you, like the who's who of Jiu-Jitsu is wearing this stuff. So that's kind of how I started with the tribe, and now it's becoming more and more popular. So that the
Yes.
brand is, the one of the thing is, before I even partnered up with Matt, one of the things that was important to me, that the gi was the right cut. It's a custom cut gi, and it's
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's just not right. It was just right. So the material was very light and breathable, and the cuts were perfect, and also the rash guard. When the rash guard is cut wrong, it's just uncomfortable in on your
Yeah.
armpit. It's cutting.
Yeah.
We all tried everyone, right? So I know. And so both the rash guards and the gis were just the right cut. And later I find out, once I was already part of the company, and as we were, sort of merging, he told me this, that yeah, man, I went through an insane amount of custom cuts and trying them on, and and that's how it started. He's like, I wanted to make gi for me. I was not
Yeah.
comfortable in certain thing. I wanted to do some rash guards that was not cutting and not too tight under my armpits, and so he was going through that research and doing it for himself. And then
Yes.
he ended up giving it to a couple of guys in his gym, and then those guys started to wear it, and then everybody wanted one. That's how it really spread,
And then grew.
right?
Yeah.
And now it's a pretty, it's not well known yet, but this is definitely one of the fastest growing
Yeah.
companies within jiu-jitsu at the moment.
For sure. And you mentioned, you said events before. So what got me thinking about a certain event that I've been seeing a lot more on Instagram and social media is PGF.
Right.
So that's something I want to ask you about. Like PGF is going to be pretty big. Now I see you there. Your Heather Gracie's there. BMAC. So you
Mm-hmm.
want to just describe a little bit about PGF and your vision on what's going to happen?
So this is also came out from the Epic tribe.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened, I knew BMAC because BMAC was part of the tribe, right? So we, what I mean? So that's how crazy this is, that I got to know BMAC because he was also one of the Epic Roll guys, one part of the tribe. And I met him on one of the photo shoots we did together, and then we were hanging out and became pretty good friends. And so when PGF had 5 seasons already, and so they were at season 5 actually, and they were running this promotion in Alabama. This is a submission only, team-based jiu-jitsu competition, right? And they were running it in Alabama, and season 5 they asked us as Epic Roll to come down and be the team captains, the coaches for one of the 4 teams that exist in the competition. And so that's how I went down there and became the team captain. It's a 4 or 5 days event, so this is a jiu-jitsu marathon, so to speak. And man, I was blown away. As I told you, I started to compete when I was 11, right? So imagine, I've seen my share of competitions, and to this day I still compete. So I go to all the IBJJF competitions I can, whatever my schedule allows, and so I still compete today. Their format just kind of blew my mind. I thought, like, man, this is really super cool, because basically the way it works, there are 20 athletes that are pre-qualified, and they're coming out of either they pre-qualify through qualifier tournaments, or they already world champions in IBJJF or ADCC. So they already like high level guys that
Rankings.
you don't. Yeah, they're ranked. You don't really have to qualify them. You're black belt 1 ADCC, then you're in, right? I mean, we don't have to try you, right? So that's how this assembled, right? And so you have 20 pre-qualified athletes, and then you have 4 coaches or 4 teams. And instead of pitting schools against each other, so it's not like Gracie Baja versus Gracie Humeda versus Atos versus, you know what I mean? And I don't think, that works, but jiu-jitsu for me is such a brotherhood that I think it would be not really healthy if you pit the teams against each other. Right? But this one, I really liked it because there's a 20 guys, then a 4 team captains, and there is a live auction, right? A live auction when you have X amount of points, and you can spend that on the athletes. And you have to buy 5 athletes. It's like fantasy league. You have to assemble.
True. It's like I was supposed to say fantasy league.
Right. You have to assemble the best possible team you can from the available 20 athletes. But when the auction starts, it's a chess game. Because here's the thing, we can run each other out of money purposely, right? We can grab each other's fighters. Like this actually happened. Like I would drive up the price because I knew that one of the coaches had one of his guys in so he's going to try to get that guy. So I know that he's going to pay them the money or the coins for it, right? For him. And I would drive up the price, even though I didn't have an intention to buy that athlete. But that's how it's a chess game, right? Because what happens, we kind of thought who's the best guy on the roster that kind of win all this, right? But here's the thing, because everybody's bidding for him, if you spent most of your money, coins, whatever, on that particular athlete, when it comes to the second and third and fourth best guy, you ran out of money. So you don't have bargaining power, right? Yeah. So, and you have to assemble a team, and your team has to win. So you might got the best guy, but if the other 3, 4 guys on your team are not as good, right, and they're not winning, the overall team score will be low, so the team will lose. See what I mean?
Huh.
So this
Yeah.
is, and then there were all these games when I purposely, one of the coaches have an athlete, and I purposely buy that athlete, right? Now he has to coach against his own athlete. See what I
My
mean?
God.
So man, it's like, and I'm like, dude, this is pure drama, pure television.
Yeah, it's
Of
like
course, in a fun way, you know what I mean? I'm like, man, this is really cool. So I already thought, like, man, this is something else. This is something where people who are not familiar with jiu-jitsu can enjoy, because
mm-hmm.
you and I will watch a jiu-jitsu match, and even
Yeah.
if nothing happens, an outsider, a civilian would say, man, these two guys are just laying on each other. We see that every motion just gaining inches of territory. So I know what's going on, you know what's going on, but for an average person who doesn't train, it's not interesting, right?
Exactly.
So basically here I'm thinking the auction part of this was already super interesting, and it's already creates that tension, that friendly, but it's funny. It's not on animosity of any kind, of any shape and way. It's just funny. And so that was the first part of this, and the second is how people who were foes before are now on the same team, right? They in the real life, they out there competing against each other, but now they just ended up on the same team, and the team only can win if these guys are tight and they understand each other and help each other, right? So then the actual competition started. Sub only. So there's no positional points, which I really like that idea,
I
that there's
love
no
that. It's my
positional
favorite.
points, right? So no positional points. You have 5-6 minutes to conclude, and if you have a draw, then it's zero for both of the athletes, 0 point, right? And there are penalties now for the new season. Going to have penalties for stalling and,
Yes,
and
obviously.
purposely, because we wanted to also speed this up. So it's short time, 5 or 6 minutes. We'll see, which this season maybe 6 minutes, right? And within that 6 minutes, you have to have a sub, right?
Exciting.
And if you don't, it's a 0 point. So your team didn't get any points, right? And so on the end of the season, basically there is a team that will win the entire competition. And this time, once I came into PGF, because once I saw this, I'm like, guys, where you want to take this? I was talking to VMAC, bro, this can be huge. And if we
Yeah.
pull together, I have the resources, I have a network. If we come together and we can do this together, I can help, right? And so that's what happened. I fell in love with the promotion and how they were doing it,
Yeah.
and I'm like, look, we just have to put up a big price,
Yeah.
right? Move this to Las Vegas. That's where we live, and that's the mecca of fighting anyway. And so if there's a big enough price, we can possibly pave the way for jiu-jitsu athletes to become professionals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because most of the jiu-jitsu tournaments are sort of Olympic style. We all train, take care of our injuries, buy our own gear, travel, pay for our travel, compete, pay for hotels, pay for a competition fee. And even if I won the tournament, if I'm world champion, I get a medal. I get a medal and a bragging rights like I was world champion. But then that's it, right? Which is great because we all love the point that we get measured. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
this is as real as it can get minus the punching. But it's this is not a home gym when you train with your friends. The championship is a championship, right? So we love that. We love the test. But is there a way for jiu-jitsu athletes to become professionals so they can live from this, right? And
Yeah.
so that was the
True.
idea. Like, let's put up a prize that's significant. So we put up, $100,000, and that means that the winning team gets $100,000, right? So all of a sudden, it's like, oh, there is something to win, and it will possibly force other promotions to do the same. And if it becomes a thing, and I already saw that there was another promotion also put up $100,000. So if it's keep happening, then there is a path. Like, a couple of guys, Gordon Ryan, a couple of guys figured that, how to, financially be successful at this. But that's just really a handful of guys. If you have a school chain that you built off of your, jiu-jitsu fame, so to speak, by winning competitions, then but that's it. Other than that, there's no money in it. So we figured
No.
we can change this,
Exactly.
So now the goals are really this. The format is super fast, gentlemanly violent. I say gentleman, it's violent, but it's gentlemanly violence, it's friendly violence, right? And I mean, you see people flying through the air, you know what I mean? Cartwheeling out of subs and just crazy stuff. It's really fun to watch.
Yeah.
Interesting, so that makes it fast, interesting to people who are not necessarily, you know, jiu-jitsu fiends, right? The Then the auction is already hilarious. And then it's basically a combination of, you know, Ultimate Fighter in some way, except we have 4 teams, you know, Big Brother, because the cameras are following the
Yeah, I
teams
was
and
going
their
to say there was a Big
stories,
Brother show. Yeah.
right? So all this is coming together. So this is entertaining, possibly spread more of the gospel of jiu-jitsu, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
And it can get the athletes be paid, basically, right?
For sure.
And even if your team doesn't win, we'll still pick the 8 guys that had the highest scores. And you score the way that, you know, we give 6 points for chokes, 3 points for any other submission, breaks, joint locks, right? And the reason for that is because if you notice, you do no jiu-jitsu, so you know exactly what I'm saying, man. Everybody is heel hook, heel hook, heel hook, heel hook, heel hook. And after a while, it's kind of, come on, man. You know,
Yeah.
it feels, it slows down the, you know, slows down the entire sport. And you know, of course, you know, rules dictate the behavior, but the behavior now is people just sit down because they're looking for that heel hook, you know.
Exactly.
And so then all this butt scooting jokes start, and you know, and we figured, you know, if you get 6 points for a choke and only 3 points for any other sub, like a heel hook would get you 3, then if you got 6 points for your team, it's better for you and better for your team.
Exactly.
Right? So people will fish for those submissions. That makes it more interesting. And it's not that butt scooting. People are going for the neck. People are going for more interesting subs. And on the end of the tournament, obviously the highest scoring team wins. But also, if you were not on a winning team, but you submitted anyone, so you collected all the points, except just, you know, maybe your teammates were not that successful, then your team didn't win. But you have a high score, then you still can continue on the next day. Like the last day, we have the finals. Yeah. So the team competition is over, and it's almost like in a jiu-jitsu competition, you can go to absolute, right? So this would be sort of the absolute. If you had the highest point, the top 8 guys with the highest points, do a final when it's an elimination style typical jiu-jitsu competition, that there will be one winner of that. Oh, wow. And we're going to give 20 grand for that guy as well. So that means you could win 20 grand as an individual if your team won, and you can grab another 20 if you won the entire season as the individual, right? So it's 40 grand you walk away with. That matters for somebody.
It's very exciting times for jiu-jitsu right now. It's changed a lot, but the payouts will be a lot bigger. It'll be a more well-known sport, you know, like hopefully you can bring like jiu-jitsu to a Super Bowl level style, because I personally don't watch Super Bowl at all, but I hope jiu-jitsu can get there someday, you know.
Right, that's the idea.
It's happening.
I mean, if you look, we call it Professional Grappling Federation. That's what PGF. That's the professional part, is let's get these guys paid, you know. Another thing is that, you know, it's been a conversation for such a long time. If jiu-jitsu could become an Olympic sport, it's unlikely. And the reason for that is because, you know, Olympics are trying to make different silos, so to speak, as very specific sports that are, how would I say this, very unique. Meaning, if you have judo already as an Olympic sport, if you put in jiu-jitsu, it's too similar. They both, you know what I mean? It's just way too similar. If both of them are wearing gi, then, you know, both of them are grappling, so too close to each other. If you do, okay, we're going to do no gi jiu-jitsu in the Olympics, then it's too close to wrestling. So, I mean, so that's the issue. That's, if you look at this, that's probably why jiu-jitsu is not going to make it to the Olympic, because wrestling is there forever. Judo is there for a long, long time as well, right? So where do you fit this in, right? Yeah. And so that means jiu-jitsu has to take another route. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. Like, okay, how do we make this into a bigger, more interesting, highly watched, you know, event? And when I say like spreading the gospel of jiu-jitsu is because this is a very, very efficient martial arts, very efficient both in self-defense and as a competitive, you know, martial art in the sport format, right? and it's became really, really sophisticated, and it's relatively safe, right? You don't
Yeah.
get punched in the face.
No.
Now we all train, we know that it's there, we're just not doing it, right? But even if I mean, if you see like Eddie Bravo have the combat jiu-jitsu stuff he's doing,
Yeah, the
right, with a
smacking.
slap. Okay, so he has a couple of guys, it's his guys, who are
Yeah.
so good that even in a situation when you can be slapped, they choose to not to slap anyone, and pretty efficient avoiding getting slapped. So jiu-jitsu, if you're really good at it, I mean, that's kind of a point of, like, if I put you in a guard, the whole idea is that I'm trying to break you down and try to
Close distance. Yeah.
close the distance and try to make sure that you can't hit me. And all those things, like how I'm stopping your biceps, if you try to punch me, and if I can get your hand across my chest, there's going to be an armbar or a triangle right at you, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of the point of jiu-jitsu, that we can fight somebody who have all the intention to punch us and still win, and still even not even get hit. If you're
Exactly.
good at this, so that makes it a fairly safe, super efficient martial art, right? And so that means a lot of people could train this. You can start jiu-jitsu. I have friends who started in their 50s, and then by their 65 they were world champions, and
Yeah.
you don't want to mess with them. 10 years of jiu-jitsu, 65 years old guy, super dangerous, will
Yeah.
whoop your ass, right? So that means this is from kids to elders.
Yeah.
It's good for everyone. And what it does also, besides the self-confidence and the bodily benefits, it also rewires your mind, because it
Yeah.
is a chess game. It is cerebral. You when you go to, you're not thinking about your daily bullshit, that what happened to you today. Did I close the garage door left, or the stove? All that is all out of the window,
Yeah.
because your body has to do the job, and you have to think. And it's really like a chess game of balance, leverage, technique, right, and strength. But mainly those three. It changes people, and
It
that's
does.
it changed me. I believe I became successful in all my endeavors because I was a martial artist, and I saw the world through those goggles, so to speak. As a martial artist, I perceive things differently, and I think that this world needs it, especially now.
Yeah.
Especially what's happening. I don't want to get into the politics and social political issues, but Jesus Christ, man, let's get some testicular fortitude, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
we need
For
we
sure.
need we need strong people, and man, woman, doesn't matter. It's you need strong people, and I feel like martial art, because it rewires the way you think, is generating strong individuals, both physically and mentally. And
Yeah.
I think like that's an evolutionary requirement for humankind to keep going. And it's insane if we're getting both dumber and weaker.
Yeah. It's funny on that note when you mentioned like even children's and that. I actually, besides you coming on my show today, I have other good news. My son, who's actually 5 years old, we signed him
Mm-hmm.
up to jujitsu. He's been saying he
Nice.
wants to do
Right.
jiu-jitsu. I had nothing to do with him doing
That's awesome.
jiu-jitsu. That's the blessing for me. He's like, Papa, I want to do jiu-jitsu. And here it is. Oh, look at this the journey. 5 years old, starting at five
Nice.
years old. It's
That's
crazy
awesome.
how children have this opportunity now to
Right.
learn martial arts at such a young age, especially jiu-jitsu, where now, like, our school, we never had children classes, but a few
Right.
years now we have more and more children learning. And my son, 10 years, he's probably going to whoop my ass, but it's not the point. The point is he's going to get an experience, a life-changing experience that I had when I was 34. And now after like three years or so, I've changed a lot too as a person, and he's gonna have that at 5 years old. So he's gonna build the confidence, become the stronger boy, and like just
Right.
mentally, he won't have any issues.
Right.
Just I'm happy that me subconsciously doing this, I have an impact on my son, and here he is.
Man, that's the best case scenario. You didn't
That's
have
the
to
dream.
force it. You didn't have, yeah, that is. And again, that's it. It will rewire his mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because, and man, I mean, like, we have kid classes in the academy. Like, these little kids are 10 years old to 5 to 10, and already
Yeah,
savages. By the time they're 14, like, you have those guys where, let's say you train since you were 4 years old. You can get your blue belt when you're 14. right?
Yeah.
So you get a 14 years old blue belt, you have no idea that that kid has been training for, 9
Yes.
years. You might be in trouble if you think that you can,
Surprise, surprise.
and the kids are like sponges, man. They like
Yeah.
learn everything. And so yeah, man, like we have 12 years old girls that be very careful because they will
Beasts.
wrap. Oh yeah, they will wrap up an adult if you don't know what you're doing, they're absolutely gonna put you away.
Yeah.
So, but I think the best part is that the mental aspect of this, because you know, because as I said, it rewires their mind. Right? When you send this kid out on the mat and they have to battle at other kids, there is a confidence that will come with that. They
Yeah.
they in the beginning, especially the youngsters, might even cry first, but that will stop, right?
For sure.
And eventually it becomes routine to them that they're gonna battle other kids, right? And all of a sudden they start changing in their mind. They start to see obstacles as challenges, right? They start to acquire this different mindset. I say this a lot, like, look, at one point in your life you have to decide if this world is happening to you or you are happening to this world, right? So it's a very different, it sounds like a simple line, but if you really think about what that means, that is two very different mindsets, and one of them will lead to success, the other one will lead to victimhood, you know. And so if you understand that this world was here before you were born, then you were born into this world, therefore you're impacting this world, right? And that means you're responsible for everything you ever do, ever say, everything. You're responsible for your existence and the footprint you live in this world. So that's one thing. Second, then you are here to accomplish, you're here to build, you're here to do things and leave that footprint in this world, right? And so when you think that way, it's it's a whole different path, right? Like this two, one or the other side of the fence is completely changes your personality, who you are in this world. And I believe that low kids who start martial arts early, this develops early. I was lucky enough that I started with 9. That's fairly early, right?
Yeah.
And then it really did that to me. Like I looked at everything that, okay, this is no longer an obstacle, it is a challenge. And eventually, you start to acquire when this comfort of that, you're comfortable with combat, you're comfortable in uncomfortable situations, you don't have the adrenaline drop when there's a dicey situation, because you fight every day as a kid in a judo club, right? And so you fight every day and it becomes natural to you. And then if you parallel that with real life, all of a sudden in school or anywhere else in your adult life as well, right? Things are, you don't view situations, uncomfortable situations. Let's say that you have to have a conversation that you view as uncomfortable. Martial art is unlikely that going to see it that way, you know, because as I said, we got used to this. We got used to the discomfort, and we develop this self-confidence, right? And when somebody tells me that this or that is not possible, that's when I'm interested. If something is easy, it's like, then everybody can do it, right?
Exactly.
If something is difficult, something is a challenge, then I'm interested. That was baked into me when I was a kid, when I was starting in judo. So that's what kind of your son will acquire, that he starts changing his perspective on, you're telling him like, kid, this wall is unclimbable, watch him, he
Yeah.
will prove you wrong, like, oh, just watch me, right? And that's
Spider-Man.
kind of my whole life was that. And I have to thank martial art for this, because my whole life I was like that. Like when somebody said, I grew up in a communist country with no passports and a minefield between with us and the West. And I kept telling people, man, I'm going to go to America, and people would already laugh like, oh, that's cute.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to America, and I'm going to be in a rock band. I'm going to form a rock band, and we're going to be huge. I'm going to tour the world. And people will literally laugh like, dude, you don't speak English, right? You can't get out of the country. You don't have passports. You don't have none of this. You don't even have a guitar. You can't even afford one. It's $100 household income a month. It's like, and it's like, well, watch me. I made my first guitar out of my parents' coffee table. I jigsaw, I call it, yeah,
Shit.
and some spare, leftover parts and secondhand parts, right? and it was a piece of crap. I was like, I don't know, 12, 13, but it was a guitar, you know.
It worked.
So and that mindset came from martial arts. Like I'm not gonna give up. As long as I'm breathing, I'm winning. And if I
Exactly.
stop breathing, then I'm dead. So then who cares? So
Mm.
that's sort of the mentality that came out of this, and I think that's what was one of the key elements to become successful at what I'm doing in any other aspects. And that is, I think, is the biggest benefit of like your son is starting jiu-jitsu 5. Man, that's incredible. You know,
Yeah.
by the time this kid is 14, he's getting his blue belt, he will be 9 years into jiu-jitsu. Like what? 9 years at that point is like he's
That's
probably black belt level,
pre-black belt.
right? Because it takes about 9, 10 if
10
you
years.
train
Yeah.
a lot, right? 10
Yeah.
years. But if you train a lot, it's about 10 years to get a black belt. That's one of the reasons I love judo. Is hard too, but jiu-jitsu, nobody gonna give you a black belt if you're not there. Because if I
Exactly.
give you a black belt, I'm responsible for your level, and you know what I mean. So many academies that they wanna have their even their color belt guys really good. They're gonna hold you for a while. I was a purple belt for 6 years, man.
Mm.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So you know, it's like it took me, man, 13, 14 years, right? Like you know, I'm on a competition team, Gracie, Humeda, Las Vegas, right? And these guys are savages, man. You're not getting a belt. You're not getting a strike. No, you're not getting it if you're not there, right?
Right.
There's no celebrity black belt either.
No.
There's no. See what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
one of the other thing. Like you know, obviously, when you're a known person, right? Like I became known with my band, right? Then there's always going to be that question, like, well, did he really get
Earn
that?
it.
Like,
Yeah.
did he really earn it? Did he get it because he's who he is, right? So I got my black belt. 2 months later, I was already fighting in a, you know, as a black belt fighting in the nationals in whatever IBJJF, right? And, you know, I got second place on the nationals. I had some battles out of hell, right? And so that kind of, you know, I love the competition. I absolutely love the environment. I love going. I got to meet all my friends that I know, pretty much most of the guys I compete against, you know.
Yeah.
So I love to be there. I love the vibe, but also there in the back of my mind there is a little bit of that thing. Not like over explanation to anyone in this world, but you know, if I go and compete on a national, international level, then that's kind of proves like, hey, you know, my professors did just give me a black belt, and I got my black belt
Yeah.
from me, and my black belt came from Mika and Hoyler. So when I, because I started with Hoyler, and the academy, Mika's academy, is also a Hoyler's affiliate. So you know, so they were both there when I got the black belt, and my black belt, and Mika is one of the most decorated jiu-jitsu guys in the world of all time. Like if you look at who has the most title, it's gonna be Megaton Diaz and Mika. Those are the two guys that are the most medals, the most competitions in you
Okay.
know, hold the record. So these guys are not gonna give me a black belt if I'm not. Now, with that said, everybody who ever gets a black belt, for the first year, you're thinking, did I deserve this? You know what I mean? You're always gonna feel like an imposter, right? And
Right.
another thing that happens when once you're a black belt, right? When you compete, let's say you compete as a purple belt, right? Then you know that whoever you compete against, right, will be about the same time range of how much they train. The purple belt, that means they probably train between, if you got there fast, 4 years,
Years. Yeah. 4 or 5 years.
you know what I mean? But possibly 6. So you can kind of gauge, like your purple belt, that means like between 4 to 6, 7 years of jiu-jitsu. That's your, you know, and then brown belt, and you know, like you know the time frames.
Yeah.
Once you're black belt, there's no more place to go.
Yeah.
So once you're a black belt, that means a coral belt would compete in also in a black belt division, right?
Wow.
So that happens. Like I go and compete in black belt, especially when you're, you know, like you're doing masters, right? If you're doing masters black belt, that means there's a possibility that you're fighting somebody who was a black belt 20 years
Years
before you were a black
ago.
belt.
Yeah.
Like that happens. So I have to go up against 4 or 5 degree black belts. It's like, that's like, they were black belt 10 years before I started jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
right?
It's a
So
different
the
level.
pool, the pool gets pretty big, but I love that.
Yeah.
To me, that's like, okay, let's go. This is a challenge, I love that.
That's awesome. Well, Zoltan, I want to actually end on that note. So you gave your whole message of like jiu-jitsu. That's actually one of my questions. Like, what would you advise people to like start jiu-jitsu? You actually gave me a beautiful answer towards the end. So
Right.
I want to end on there, and I actually want to take the time again to say thank you for coming on my podcast. It means a lot to me. It was a good week. You said yes. My son started jiu-jitsu. It's a good show. This is a good show. I'm gonna drink to that. So
Absolutely.
everyone who's tuning in, nerds, BJJ athletes, have a good roll, guys. Keep on listening, keep on rolling. Us.
Can cast me out.